Yo, welcome to Music is a Day Job. I'm your host, Sean, and this is brought to you by the Concert app. The Concert app is the artist accelerator app that takes artists from opener to headliner to on tour and gives the fan the best experience in independent live music. Now, this is part 3, and we're going to talk about the start of your career is 100 fans. Now, some people, they'll be like, well, that's not that many fans. No, it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. This is why I call this the start of your career. When you get to 100 fans, and let's go between 100 and 150. Let's go 100 to 150. You're making between $500 to $1,000 a night, and that's in my formula. When you're at 100 fans, you're making around 500. When you're selling 100 tickets, you're making around 500. When you're selling 1,000, when you're selling 150, you're making $1,000 a night. So, and this is you doing this yourself. This isn't everyone else selling tickets. This is just you as a headliner being that person that can do these numbers like that. And this makes sense. And this is why this makes sense. Is because capacity of venues that you're more than likely going to do are probably at the rate of like 300 person venues. Some people get into 500 and 700, but you're more than likely going to be doing 200 to 300 person capacity venues. If you're filling up half or more, that tells you, yeah, you're probably at 1,000. You're making $1,000 a night. Like, you got to think it from the idea of a lot of these artists that are coming to these venues are getting paid $5,000, $3,000 to $5,000 to come to these venues. They pay out management, label, etc. They probably don't see none of it because they're recouping. So, and they probably wouldn't see much anyway. But then you're going to be seeing more because you're bringing in the $1,000 a night. I have multiple kids that currently are doing this, and hey, they make money. Now, how do I get to that? Like, as I said, we talked about the 15 fans, getting your first 15 fans. We talked about getting your 50 fans. So then, as I told you, you're using the merch from the 50 fans. You're doing the national shows. So that's gaining you more fans. You're doing you're using the other fans to get more fans because people are seeing you, like, them all excited and everything like that. Now, at 100 fans, why it's the start of your career, this is when you're first seeing like real income from this. So that's why I say this is the start of your career, is because you're starting to see real income from what you're doing. And I don't want to say like that's the only thing that is successful about music, but in the music business, that's what success is that you're seeing income from it. You're starting to see real income. Like, if you're making $1,000 when you go do this performance, then that's amazing. This is when the way you get more fans, of course, now becomes finding other cities. It also becomes figuring out how many times you need to perform per year. So with these two ideas, the first one, starting to find other cities. Now, the first piece is you need to figure out what I say is the best. What I say is the best, like, might not be the best for some people, but if there's close cities to your current city, number one, if you live in the capital, this will make it easier. If you live in the capital and you're 100 and you're in the 100 person, like bringing 100 people to the show and you're headlining and you're doing that, if you live in the capital, it's easy for you to make other cities that aren't the capital, and those artists respect you more because you are popping in the capital. You're popping in the big city. Now, if you don't live in the big city, this becomes a little bit harder because you're going to have to go to the big city and replicate this idea. If you live in the big city, as I said, this makes it easier for you to gain more consumers because then you're known as the person that's popping in the big city. This makes artists in the other cities respect you more because you're in the big pond. And then it makes the consumers respect you because naturally they believe the big city is the big city for some reason. So they'll naturally take to the idea. So this makes it easier for you to get consumers in another city. Now, when you go get consumers in another city, and this is for everybody, whether you're coming from the big city or not, you're trying to figure out a replication process. How did you do it to get to 100 fans in this city? Now, what you did was when you got into your main city, you either, as I told you, you started off and you had friends and family, and then you had friends, family, and coworkers and stuff like that, and you use those to gain across. Now, what you're doing here at 100 fans is you're saying, okay, I'm going to go into this other city, and it needs to be close in like distance, because then I have 100 fans in this city. 15 of these people of the 100 will go to this next city. And that's the way you move into this next city, is because you use those fans like I told you at the 15 level. Those fans now come and they're going to chant you up to get 30 fans in that next city. So you're saying, like, with me, I'm like, Denver to Colorado Springs is an hour away. If I'm popping in Denver, I know 15 of these people will come down to the Springs to see me. And that's what's going to start my first move into this city. If they see 15 people come down, they're going to be like, oh, that's the kid popping from over there. Now, you do have some upper hand pieces to being from the non-big city, is that you can talk the bigger artist in the big city to come into your city. And they never probably have ever done that. So then now you're helping them. And then that's the cross of like the fans of hey, let me find the dude that's popping in this other city. And that's how I'm going to gain fans, because I'm going to get with that person, because I'm going to share the idea of I'm going to bring 100 to 150 people where I'm at. You're bringing 100 to 150 people where you're at. If we share this, then we can gain fans and swap fans this way. And this is how we built the start of our career for real, because we're trying to now get another 100 over there. And now this goes on for the next few little whiles for you to keep adding hundreds, because you're trying to get it in every city. And I talked about this when I talked about like the superstar effect and stuff like that. Like, a lot of people don't want to do this work because they don't want to go back down to being the bottom person and working back up. But this is the replication process you have to think about if you're trying to make this a day job. You're trying to be like, well, how can I replicate selling this product in another city? What I tell people is more than likely use places closer to you, because that lowers the amount of expenses. You don't, more than likely, if it's only an hour away, you don't have to get a hotel. You don't have to, rent a car, or you don't have to take a plane flight or none of this. So you're cutting all the expenses because you can drive back home. You can actually make your food and go up there. Worst case, you know what I'm saying? Eat in your car and then perform it and come home. If it's that bad, you know what I'm saying? So then make sense of what you're doing. That's why you don't want to go so far, because you can't control that, nor can you bring fans with you. You at the start really at dead zero. But if you go an hour one way, you can get 15 people to come up with you, and then they'll help you get more fans up there. You see what I'm saying? And if you're already popping, and as I said, if you're already popping, that makes it easier for you to talk someone who's popping in that next city to get you. So now figuring out that replication process becomes very important, to be like, yo, what's this replication process of me getting to this city to this city? And then what you're trying to do is, when you go even further, if you're going even further from that next city, so let's say I'm in Colorado Springs and Denver's an hour away. An hour away from Denver is Fort Collins. If I'm going to get to 100 in Denver, then I'm going to do that exact same process to take me to Fort Collins, and I'm going to bring 15 people from Denver to go to that next spot. And then take Fort Collins, take me up to Cheyenne, Wyoming. Like, I'm just leveraging the last place to help me get and start that same replication process of what I did at 15 to get me to 30 and 50. And then you're doing the exact same thing, like, but in these other places, you're already starting with merch. You're already starting with a slight buzz, because in the city next to them, they know you. So more than likely, there is a little bit of buzz already going. And when you get 2 to 3 of these places locked in, the buzz will keep you going. Like the buzz will keep everything going. And then that becomes what I talked about when I say one of the hardest parts of being independent artist is the consistency. Figuring out that consistency. Because you're already figuring out at 100, as I said earlier in this video, at like 100 fans, you're trying to figure out how many shows do I got to do. Now, what I say is this, like, what I do, and this might not be good for you because either you might want to, like, I do the minimum amount of shows. You can do more. I do the minimum to keep my fan base excited, but then also keep the freshness of it, but at the same pace, how much can I actually harness with how many places I got to go? So then I'm at a point where I was doing 4 shows a year in the same area. Sometimes at 1 year I was probably doing like 10 to 15 shows. But what makes sense for real is like 4 shows. Some people I can do 5, 6, 7, 8 and stuff like that, and that's great. If you're at least doing 4 shows a year headlining in your in your city, then that's what's going to replicate. Let's say if you're at 150. Let's say you're at 150 fans and you're making 1,000 a night and you're doing 4. That's at least $4,000 that year. Now you're going to. That's why I say that's the start of your career. You're making $4,000, and then that didn't count merch or nothing like that. So you're making at least $4,000 now. And you start adding those other cities, then you're starting to get there in the other cities. As you start adding cities, you start saying each city I'm making $4,000 in. So then how many cities do I need to get to that I'm making $4,000 in? Or do I keep going upward in the amount of people I got in the city, which that's what you're hoping you're doing. You're hoping you're doing both. You hope you're expanding and going up at the same time. So as you're at 150 where you were, when you get to 150 in another city, you should probably be at 300 in your main city now. So then now you're making 2,000 in your main city, or more, like 2,500 in your main city, and then you're making 1,000 in this other city. So then when you do this one 4 times, now you're making $8,000 here and $4,000 here. And then you're building this next city. So you see, if you're doing this quick enough, you're going to start moving quicker and making more money. And in a couple of years, you'll get to the point of making consistent. If you're doing it more, you're going to make more. And that's how quick it'll start going. So that's like the start of your career when you get to that 100, 150. Okay, so this has been Music is Day Job. I'm your host, Sean. This is brought to you by the Concert app. Once again, like, comment, and subscribe. Everybody should be knowing this so we can start building a community so everyone can make music into a day job. The Concert app is actually in multiple cities and states right now. So make sure you go download the Concert app first. If it's in your city and state, jump on some shows. If it's a conference, make sure you RSVP to conference, because we're going to talk about all this and how we're going to build out there. If we're not, tell everybody, jump on to the app so then we see the demand and we can get to your area ASAP. If you have any venues, let us know, because then that makes it easier for us to start throwing shows in your area. Once again, Music is a Day Job. I'm Sean. It's brought to you by the Concert app.